we study the Upanishad started by presenting itself the Guru Parampara of the teaching. And somewhere so the discussion started with the Guru Parampara. And the Guru Parampara is always looking. Okay. And the entire Guru Parampara, we said, it started from Brahma. We say it started from Brahma is to indicate that the teaching is of a divine origin. It is not something that is created by, this is not something that is created or made by a human. Therefore, the first teacher is always of the divine. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam, we saw all that. So, all teachings will refer the original teacher, the first teacher as the divine. The moment you say the divine is the teacher, straight away it becomes sacred and unique. Why do we give it as a divine origin? Number one, we give it a divine origin. First one is it becomes sacred. Number two, it becomes universal. Because anything that the divine gives is universal. Divine is not going to give specially to a small set of people. Whatever the divine gives to the entire creation. Therefore, the entire Upanishad Guru Parampara always starts with the divine, and then it reveals to a human being. When it reveals to a human being, that person is called a Rishi, the sage. So that person is revealed, and then that person will be on the next. The glory of the Parampara will exist. From the glory of the Parampara, we came down to the specific two characters in this conversation. The specific two characters in the conversation is the Guru and the Sishya, Angirasa and Shama. Having spoken about the Parampara, the student is glorified. In the third verse, the third mantra that we studied, the student is glorified. How the student got glorified? Mahashala. Not only Mahashala, Shaunako, Shauka. If you read the Indrabodhu mantra, if you read the mantra, Shaunako, you have to see that Shaunaka. And then the Upanishad will give two things. One is Ha and Y. Next to Shaunaka, if you can see, the Ha and the Y sound is glorifying the student. The second glorification is Mahashala. Shaunako Habai. The word Ha-Vai means the Upanishad, the Guru is praying. What is the prayer that the Guru is having? Let there be many more students like Shaunaka. That is the meaning of the word Ha. Shaunako Habai Mahashala. Word Ha-Vai is a very unique. These are all the very subtler things the Upanishad gives. And we being serious students, we have to carefully look at each and every word. At the first level of reading, you give a superficial reading. You really don't look into the words. You just read the general translation and you get the general meaning, the general thought flow, and then you say, I am satisfied. That teaching will not really, that way of studying will never bring about any deeper transformation. It can only give you a very superficial satisfaction that, yes, I have also studied a few Upanishads, I have also studied some scriptures. Now from that, from the regular classes, we come to a retreat like this because of what? What words we miss in the other things we want to focus? We want to focus. Shaunako Havai. So when we chant, we say Shaunako Havai Mahashala. We keep going like that. The Mahashala is glorifying the students. The Upanishad is praying, let there be many more students like of the Shaunaka caliber. And who is that Shaunaka? Mahashala. Why he is called Mahashala? Because he created lot of Yajnashala, he created lot of Patashala, he created lot of Pakashala. Pakashala, in the modern day context, we call it as Annadana. So, he did three wonderful things. One is, Shalaha is, when we say Mahashalaha means, all the Shalas he has done. If you know, if he has to do all that, how much wealth he must have had. Because these Grihastha people must not take money from others and do charity. They should use their wealth. The brahmachari and sannyasi alone will take the wealth of the others and do charity. Grihastha must do charity from their own. Therefore is called Shaunako Havai Mahashala. Why? The purpose of earning wealth itself is to do charity. Therefore he is Mahashala because he had Pakashala. Pakashala, in the modern day context, we call it as Annadana Chandram Visema, feeding. So he has fed a lot of people. So he has done many times like that. Not only that, he has done Patashala. Patashala means he has opened a lot of schools and universities. Patashala means schools, universities. Number 3, he has done lot of Yajnashala. Because he has done lot of Yajnashalaha, Pakashalaha and Patasalaha, So these are all very that's why in the next mantra is going to say the Siksha itself must teach you all these differences. Then you know the greatness of Shauna. So what he has done it so wonderful, these kind of actions, which you will find in the commentary. He was known for his philanthropy. He was well known for his philanthropy, is what the commentary will say. Now, what is the philanthropy that he did? Yajnashala, Pakashala and Patashala. Why Pakashala was considered as a very great dhanam, sacrifice in those days. First we have to understand cooking used to happen using firewood. And most of the times the wood that you have is half wet, 40% wet, 30% wet. Have you ever been to a place where they have firewood? Anybody? You have seen that, no? You can't go into that place. It's all smoke all the time. And the wood is not dried up also. So it's and then 15 items will taste the same smoke. 15 items will be there. All will taste the same. Therefore, what they do, it takes just to make one dal, easily will take 4-5 hours. So somebody does Annadana in those days was considered a great act of giving. The modern day context, it is based in food. We don't need to do Annadana at all. So we have to tell people what we have to tell now. Don't eat so much, don't throw food, don't waste food. One of the rules of the ashrama which we don't follow nowadays at all. You go to the dining hall, the food will be served, you waste a little bit of food, that day you will not be served. That day you will not be served. Who will monitor, who will report and all, we don't know. There are spies everywhere. There are spies. So they are very, because they know the value of it. Today you go to the store, everything is available, so much we don't even know. There's a lot of Pakashala. Pakashala means why it is considered as a great act of charity. Is because 4-5 hours it takes just to cook one item. If you are removed of that effort you can dedicate it for vichara, inquiry. That's the idea. Why do they want to do that sacrifice? If you are removed of that effort, that 5 hours, 6 hours in a day you will have. So that 5-6 hours in a day you can use it for your transformation, growth, study, vichara, etc. Therefore, Pakashala was considered a very great philanthropy act. Yajnashala. Yajnashala means social activities. He has done a lot of yajna. Social activity is of two types. One is Drishta and another is Adrishta. One kind of social activity is you put up an hospital, a school. That is Drishta kind of social activity. There is another kind of social activity which is Adrishta by nature. Adrishta kind of social activity is what? You sit in front of the yajna, you take a little bit of ghee, ahuti, and then you say, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu sarvasan mangalani santu swaha. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu sarvasan mangalani santu swaha. It means what? You offer it to fire, and the fire god will take it and deliver it respectively. We understand it works because of the power of God. You sit and do with the Shraddha, the power of thought goes and benefits everybody. Therefore, one way of doing social activity is putting up activities directly. Another is sitting and doing yajnas. Now, to do yajna kind of social activity requires a lot of Shraddha. Why? Because it is Adrishta by nature. You will never know whether it is going to go to the beneficiary or not. In Drishta, you can directly see the beneficiary. You feel satisfied. What? I have done something. There is a direct egoistic satisfaction in Drishta karma. In Adrishta karma, the ego can never be satisfied because ego will always have a question mark. What is the question mark? How does it work? I put something in the fire here. How it will go to? It will go to somebody there. That's all. In those days, we had a lot of superstitious beliefs, and all this is part of the superstitious beliefs. Now, carefully work. To come into the spiritual inquiry of the Upanishadic level from Drishta karma, we need to have the capacity to move to Adrishta karma. Again, to move from Drishta karma to Adrishta karma. That Adrishta karma is what we have studied as the distinction between social work and social consciousness. Remember, we have studied it any number of times. The social work and the social consciousness. Now, social work is Drishta karma, social consciousness is Adrishta karma. But both are for the welfare of the society. Therefore, Shaunaka Mahashala is such a wonderful person. This Shaunaka, this Mahashala, did everything with due orthodoxy. With due orthodoxy means as per the laid out conditions. Due orthodoxy means what? There is a laid out conditions. Laid out condition means there is no sense of proportion that you can apply there. Again, orthodoxy means there is no sense of proportion that is applicable. Therefore, Shaunako Havai Ashalaha, he goes to Angirasa Vidhivat. Vidhi means the law. We have studied it any number of times. Vidhi means the law. As prescribed by the law, Shaunaka goes to Angirasa and asks a question. What is the question? He Padavaha means, oh Lord, Asminnu Vijñāte Sarvamidam Vijñātam Bhavati. He asked. What did he ask? Oh dear sir, oh God. The Guru is considered as the God. He Padavaha, you are the God, you are my God, you are the Pratyaksha God. The Guru is the Pratyaksha. The Guru is the Pratyaksha God. Oh God, by knowing which one thing alone, what having known, does all this become known? Now we'll explore the question. Up to now, it's very interesting. When we start exploring the question, after the Vada and the Pongal, 4 Vadasana straight away you fall off to sleep. 2 Vadasana, it will take 15 minutes to fall off to sleep. After Vada and Pongal, what do you do? Oh adorable sir, what having known, does all this become known? A very beautiful, very extraordinary question that he asked. Kenechidam padati prechidam manaha kena prana prathama praitita. In the Kenopanishad, the same question is asked using different words. Kena ishidam. Kenechidam means kena ishidam. By what? What is it that is? So the same question that he is asking here. What is the question? Knowing which you know everything. First thing that you need to understand is how did Shaunaka even conceive of a possibility like this? That is the first question that we have to explore. How did Shaunaka even thought that he can go and ask a question like that, knowing that you know everything? In order to ask a question, you must have some partial knowledge about it. Then only you can ask a question. Okay. In order to question, you must have some partial knowledge. Supposing if you don't know anything at all, what can you question? You can only keep gazing. Nothing can be done. Therefore, the very fact that he is asking this question implies that he is knowing something. At the same time, he has not yet known it completely. The problem is whom to go and ask this, and he found the person in Angirasa. So Shaunaka is asking this question to Angirasa. What is the question? Knowing that, how does he know? How does he even know that a question like that is possible? Because straight away it can be dismissed as the absurd, illogical question. How can you straight away dismiss this question as an illogical, absurd question? Because on observation, you find when you know a thing, you can only know that thing. Okay. When you know a thing, you can only know that thing. You know physics, you can only know physics. When you know a thing, you know only that. How can there be a thing like that where you know one, you know everything? First of all, the question itself is an absurd question. Okay. group discussion, that question will be dismissed as a question that should not be asked at all. Because how can you know a thing by which you will know everything? You know Sanskrit. Knowing Sanskrit, can you know everything? Knowing one, how can you know everything? It means the question that he is asking, Asmin Bhagavo Vijnade Sarvamidam Vijnadam Bhavati iti, has a unique meaning. That unique meaning that we try to interpret is what yesterday we called it as Mimamsa method. Remember the discussion in the morning session we had, the Mimamsa method of analysis of the Vedas. So, first we try to understand the question on our known logical plane. When we analyze the question on our known logical plane, we understand this question has no validity at all. Therefore, you can tell him straight away what. There is no such thing like that. There is no possibility at all like that. But where did he get this question from? It indicates that he has studied the Vedas a lot already. He has studied the Vedas, the Upanishads a lot already. But what is missing in him? What is missing in him? He is not able to figure out, is there anybody who actually knows it? Okay, forget it in the books. It is in the books, it is in the Upanishads, it is in the Upanishads, it has been handled for thousands of years. All that is adorable, all that is respectable, fine. We are okay with all that. The Shaunaka, the Mahashala will not be satisfied with that. The Mahashala, the Shaunaka will want to know, is there anyone who knows it? In the Yoga Vasishtha, Rama asks the same question. You know there is a book called Yoga Vasishtha, where Lord Rama is the student and Vasishtha is the guru. After the education is over, compulsorily the tradition is 1.5 years you need to go on a tour. That's the education. The education system was like that. In the campus itself, you will not take an interview. From the campus, you will not straight go and sit in the job. That is the wise thinking. The Upanishadic people were not that wise. After the education is over, the child must go on a tour. And they stipulate the time also. 18 months they must go on a tour on Father's Maharaj. On Father's Maharaj. Go. Just go. Because what you have studied in the school, you go out into the world, you see things, you come back. We want a mature society. We don't want a society that knows how to make money. We want a society that is emotionally mature and intellectually stable. If we want a society that is emotionally mature and intellectually stable, there is a rule. This is how it can be. This is how it can be done. This is how it can be achieved. Therefore, what Rama did after the education got over for Rama, he went round the country. Latest example of the same tradition, faithfully one fellow followed in this country, Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi followed that here. He went to South Africa at the age of 20, 21. Very young age he came. And he lived there for, you know how many years he lived in South Africa? 20 years. He just didn't go for a short tour and come back. 3 weeks tour he didn't come. He lived there for 20 years. And then he came back. So by the time Mahatma Gandhi came back to India, who knows the history? Am I saying rightly? That's why I need to say all the wrong things. He doesn't remember any right. All the wrong things. Correct. He came back. When he came back, he was a great leader already. Because he came back, he was a great leader already. His guru told him, "You want to fight for this country's freedom?" He said, "Yes, I want to fight for this country's freedom." First, travel around the country for 3 years, he said. Go around the country for 3 years. And he did that. He did that. For 3 years, he did that. And then when he came to our South India, somewhere in Madurai only, he saw something happen and he decided not to wear shirt after that. He said, people are so much struggling here. We wearing upper cloth is luxury, he thought. The idea here is what? He said, if you really want to fight for the country's freedom, you should know the country. And the only way to know the country is not through Google. You don't know the country through Google. You know the country by travel. That's the tradition. And I always told him, all that here in this classroom is like a story. You should hear it and as soon as you leave the room, forget it. Then you are safe. Otherwise, you will be utterly confused. Now, come back to Yoga Vasishtha. From Mahatma Gandhi, we come back to Yoga Vasishtha, Rama. After the education got over, he went on a Tirtha Yatra. It's called Tirtha Yatra. Tirtha Yatra doesn't mean pilgrimage. Tirtha Yatra means you go around the country wanting to know the country so that you can serve the country better. So, Rama went around the country and came back. He was very sad. He was very depressed. That is the time our famous Rishi Vishwamitra comes. Vishwamitra comes and asks for. Vishwamitra is the Brahma Rishi. He is. From a Kshatriya, he became a Brahma Rishi in one Janma. That's why Vasishtha says, you hear the story of Vishwamitra, you will be purified. And the entire glory of Vishwamitra, we hear from Vasishtha only. That man never spoke about himself. Vasishtha, his rival, intense rivalry between Vasishtha and Vishwamitra. Vasishtha spoke about the rival. Vasishtha speaks the glory of Vishwamitra. That Vishwamitra comes to Dasharatha. When the teacher comes, and the guru comes, don't follow it literally again. This is the Vidhivat. All the story I am giving to explain what is the due orthodoxy means and how following that matures you. When the guru comes, the tradition is whatsoever you have come for is granted, given to you. Now tell me what you want. They will follow Manish. Remember, San Diego, June. When the guru comes, first thing you tell the guru is what? Whatsoever you have come for is granted. Now tell me what you want. Vishwamitra said that. Dasharatha told that to Vishwamitra. Vishwamitra turned back and said, I want Rama. Oh, no, that I can't. Ask for something. Vishwamitra said, see, I want Rama. You give, or if you don't give, you keep your Rama, I am going, he said. Vasishtha interface, the guru interface. Dasharatha asked Vishwamitra, why do you need Rama? Because there is a battle going on with the Rakshasas. And I need somebody to protect the yajna. They are coming and unnecessarily disturbing the yajna. Like 5 days we come and disturb, we can go back. There is a yajna happening there. We come and disturb and go back. That's what we can. So Vishwamitra said, there is one group of people coming, going to disturb the yajna. I need protection. And Dasharatha says, I will protect. That is the time Vasishtha gets up from his seat. Till that time, Vasishtha was sleeping. When he said, I will protect, Vasishtha stood up. He said, Dasharatha, do you understand what you are talking? What makes you think that Vishwamitra needs your protection? Is Vishwamitra means he can protect the entire creation. What a lie you speak. There is no limit at all to your lies that you are telling I will protect. Do you know this man's caliber? And then you find Vasishtha narrating the glory of God. So Dasharatha is not convinced because infatuation to the son. Finally, Vasishtha has to force the authority. I am the Guru, I am telling you, send him. Now he has no. When he comes, he looks very sad, depressed. Dasharatha asks, why are you sad? Why are you sad? Did I put any of your friends in the prison? I will release them. Smile. Are you in love with any girl? I will get her married to you. Don't be depressed. All that language. Dasharatha talks to Rama and Rama is not even looking at him. Vasishtha tells Dasharatha, now you keep it. I'll ask him. What is your problem, Rama? What is your problem? He says, is there anybody in this congregation here who knows the truth? He asks, is there anybody in this congregation who knows the truth? Vishwamitra says, only two here knows the truth. One is me. The arrogance with which he says, one is me. You should prostrate to that arrogance million times, you can prostrate. And he says, one is me. I know it. The next person is Vasishtha. Tradition says you learn from your Kulaguru first. If the Kulaguru cannot teach you, then come to. But you have wonderful Guru, Rama, that Yoga Vasishtha. Now what it means there? The same question. What is the question? He has read the books, he has studied the Upanishads, he has by-hearted them, he has lived a life of karma, bhakti, etc. He has got the Chitta Shuddhi. All that a human being can possibly do, Shaunaka has done. And that person is coming and asking this question. What is the question? Smin bhagavo vijnade sarvamidam vijnatam bhavati. It means what? He has read that there is this thing called Brahman in the Upanishad. He has already read it. But he doesn't actually know it. Why? Because the way to know Brahman is to become Brahman. Brahmavid, Brahmaiva bhavati. That also we studied yesterday. The Vedic knowing is a unique knowing. Because in order to know something, you have to become that. In order to know what an apple is, you don't have to become an apple. All worldly knowledges, you don't need to become that. In order to know Brahman, the only way to know Brahman is to become it. Brahmavid, Brahmaiva bhavati is the formula. The knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. The knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. Is there anybody who has you actually know it? Do you actually know it? The word knowing has a unique meaning. From now on, the Upanishad is going to get very technical. And anybody wants to take a break, they can take a break. From now on. Seriously, yeah? The Upanishad gets very technical from now on. That's why we want to no more generalized talks of handling your family, handling your children, handling their neighbor. All those elementary talks will not be happening anymore. It gets into some very serious business. What is it? The word knowing has a different meaning. What is that? Knowing everything by knowing one thing is possible only in Brahma Vidya. Again, knowing everything by knowing one is possible only in Brahma Vidya. How do we say that? Verse number 16, chapter 2, Bhagavad Gita. There are two orders of reality. Asato vidyate bhavaha, nabhavo vidyate sataha, dvayorapi drishtontaha, pranayoho tattvadarshinihi. Very strong description. They know that. What is that? They know the difference between Satyam and Vidyam. By knowing the Satyam, you will know everything about the Vidyam. Because it is the Satyam, out of the Satyam comes the Vidyam. I'll explain all the Sanskrit words. You must by heart a few Sanskrit words also. From the Satyam arises the Vidyam. From that we derive a corollary. What is the corollary? The Satyam becomes the Adhishtanam for the Vidyam. Again, there are two orders of reality. Satyam and Vidyam. Vidyam means with certainty you cannot say whether it is there or not. That is called Vidyam. Are we here? Yes. Is it Satyam? And we cannot say. But the next moment we will not be. Therefore, that appears to be there but doesn't have an independent reality is called Vidyam. Satyam is that which has an independent reality, and that independent status of that reality is inconceivable. How do you say that? That independent reality doesn't have a form of its own. Because it doesn't have a form of its own, it can take. Because it doesn't have a form of its own, it can take all the forms. Therefore, when you look at the world of the forms, what is it that you are actually looking at? Satyam, Brahman. Knowing that, you know everything. Knowing this, you know everything. Again, I repeat the sequence. There are two orders of reality. One is Satyam and another is Vidyam. Vidyam means dependent reality. You can call it dependent, you can call it temporary, any word you can use. But one thing is clear, but it cannot stand on its own. That which cannot stand on its own but has an appearance is Vidyam. Popularly, Vidya is known as Maya. Now we don't use the word Maya, we use the word Vidya. Upanishad uses the word Vidya. Later on, text started using the word Maya, and you find all the English books also uses the word Maya a lot. But Upanishad uses the word Sat and Asat. Asato vidyate bhavaha nabhavo vidyase satha. The Sat and Sat. Now what this Sat means? It has an independent reality, and that independent reality is a formless reality. Independent, formless existence. Contradictory in terms. Follow the blabbering now. What did I say just now? Independent, formless existence. Blabbering is. Because existence must have a form. There cannot be a formless existence. That is Brahman. That is Brahman. Knowing that, you will know everything. Not only that, that becomes the Adhishtanam for, that becomes the basis for everything. That's why some of the books like Atma Bodha, Govinda Mandal, we have studied, is very helpful. Because these terms are explained there very well. Upanishads don't bother to explain those terms. The assumption here is we have studied Atmabodha, we have studied Govindam, and we remember also. No, sir, is there in the notes? I have to refer the notes now for these. Yeah. I have studied, but is there in the notes? Notes in the can't go keep. So what is it? Knowing that one, we know. Knowing that one, we know everything. From another angle, the law, the effect is not separate from the cause. If you know the cause, the entire effect is known. Again, an effect is not separate from its cause. See, all these formulas is what we study in the, before the person gets initiated into the study of Vedanta, we will study all this. It's called Tarka Nyaya Mimamsa. This Tarka Nyaya Mimamsa, I spoke about it in previous retreat. New things we can same. Before you get into the initiating into the study of Vedanta, you need to know three things: Tarka, Mimamsa, Nyaya. Tarka, Mimamsa, and Nyaya is logic, reason, analysis. The logic, the reason, the analysis. Now we keep saying this is the law, this is the law, this is the law. From where do we get all this law? From Tarka, Nyaya, Mimamsa. No, these children here are studying. No, we find the children in orange clothes now. After the 5th year of the education, they will be initiated into the study. For 2 years, they will study this. Oh, I went back to the same school I went to. You even wonder why do we even study all these things? There, the methodology of logic, reason, analysis is taught. So, one of the principles of the analysis is what? An effect is not separate from its cause. If you know the cause, the entire effect is known. Why? Because the cause is one, the effect is many. The cause is one, the effect is many. When you look at the many effects, that many effect is what popularly called as Nama Rupa. That many effects is the Nama Rupa, and the very many Nama Rupa has one cause. So you know the cause, you know the. So from the standpoint of Nama Rupa, there are many. Carefully follow the logic. From the standpoint of Nama Rupa, there are many. From the standpoint of the cause, small. Therefore, what is he asking? What is that cause out of which these very many effects has come? Smin Bhagavo Vijnate Sarvamidam Vijnatam Bhavati. Manishwari, okay? He is saying, what is that cause out of which this plurality has come? We go blank, not even knowing what is this question. Why is even asking this question? How does this question going to help us? If you are still asking about how is this question going to help us and all, you have not even become an ordinary Shala. You have not even done normal Shala. Forget Mahashala. Go back. Therefore the Upanishad says, go back. What will I get out of all this, sir? What will I get? Wrong audience. Go back. Quickly go back. Go back into what? Whatever it is. Savasi vidam sarvam yatinja jagatyam yavad Tena tektena bunjidam magrida asya siddhana. Mantra 1, Isa. The student is asking, what will I get out of this mantra now? I have studied this. What will I get out of it? Okay, forget the first mantra. Forget it. By mistake it is said. It's a wrong statement. Forget it. Guruvanneveha karmani. Because he is understood. That person is not fit. Therefore, rest of the Upanishad he goes about Guruvanneveha karmani, etc. and all. Same problem you will find in all Upanishads will have this. Therefore, you will never find in the Upanishad a congregational teaching. Upanishad is always the individual teaching. Because in a congregational teaching there are grades. So therefore it becomes very difficult. So as a person who is talking on this, I have an assumption in my head. What is the assumption? All are Shaunakas, Mahashala sitting here. Under that assumption, talk. Otherwise, how will you talk? So you have to assume something. You assume all are Mahashala. Don't laugh. So he said, if you have done all that, having gotten matured, and then the penetrating capacity will ask you a question. What is the question? Individually, how much I will know? Supposing if I know that one thing by which I can know everything. That is the that question. Rest of the Upanishad is an answer to this question. You will never find the Upanishad student interrupting the course. Bhagavad Gita, you will find Arjuna going on. But sir, Arjuna will go on. Interrupting. In Kenopanishad, the question is asked once and rest of the Upanishad is answered to the question. In Isavas Upanishad, the student doesn't even know how to he just comes and stares. The Guru knows what the question is, he starts talking. That is Isavasya. So we say Isavasya must be studied last. Isavasya, why? Because there is no question also there. All that the student does it, he walks in and looks at the teacher, and the teacher starts Om Purnamada Purnavidam Purnat 16th mantra Pushande Karsheyam Surya Rajapatya, the golden disc drama of realization. 17th mantra. You don't even know the Guru. The Sishya says thank you and leaves. Beautiful Upanishad. For that one question of Shunaka, from mantra 4 till the end of the Upanishad, it is an answer to this one question. In the background of what we have studied, it will be easy to follow what he is going to say. Mantra 4. To him, Shaunaka, verily, he, Angirasa said, 2 knowledges are to be known in thee. Para, the higher, and Apara, the lower. The knowers of Brahman have said so. Okay. To him, to Shaunaka, Angirasa said, Asmi Sahovacha. Him, he said. From this, what do you understand? There is a stenographer there writing everything. Him, he said, Asmai Sahovacha. This person, he said. What did he say? Knowers of Brahman have told this to us, Shaunaka. Those who have known Brahman have told us that two knowledges are to be known. ரெண்டு படிக்கணும். Two you must know. Para and apara. What is the question and what is the answer? Knowing that you know everything is the question. He is introducing the answer. He is not answering. Because Upanishads leave gaps in between. And the student picks up the gap and he says understood. Because whenever you can't focus on the gaps, words will be used. Remember, words are not the teaching. Words are used because you can't retain the gaps in between. Therefore, what is the question? Knowing that which you know, everything is a question. Actually, what you should have answered? Whatever, but then he is saying there are two types of knowledge. Vevidye, Veditavye. Again, another two beautiful words. Ha, sma. Ha and sma. Mantra, first line, the last two alphabets. The words are alphabets. Iti, ha, sma. They will torture us asking for the meaning of this. What is the ha means here? What is the sma means here? Why this is used here? What is it that is conveyed through this? What is the direct meaning? What is the implied meaning? By the time you answer all this, you will come out of the classroom thinking, this teacher is out to torture us for nothing. The penetrating capacity, the strength of the intellect, such a beautiful method of developing the buddhi. Two knowledges are to be known. One is called para and another is called apara. And who has told this two knowledges you need to know? Movers of Brahman. I am not saying this. Girasa is saying, I am not telling you this. This is what the previous Guru taught. That Guru says, this is what that person taught. And then you go back to Atharva. And then Atharva will say, this is what I learned from Brahma. And if you ask Brahma, from where you learnt it? Brahma will say, what will Brahma say? What you ask him? It is Sanatana, no? It is eternal, no? What do you mean? What do you mean from where you learnt it? It is there all the time. It is there all the time. It is not something that you have to, it is not something that you ought to create. Recognition of what is there already. The movers of Brahman have said. What is this para and what is this apara? Later on, he is going to describe what is this para and what is this apara means. Both should be known, he said. It means what? You need to know aparavidya and you need to know paravidya. Then in the sequence, what you should know first? Aparavidya has to be known first, and then graduating and maturing from aparavidya, you will get into paravidya. Therefore, the various meanings to the word paravidya, aparavidya. There are various meanings to the word paravidya and aparavidya. So, at the first level, aparavidya means worldly knowledges, paravidya means Upanishad, Vedanta, the Vedas. That is one meaning of the word paravidya and aparavidya. Again, aparavidya means all worldly knowledges, and then paravidya means the knowledge of the Vedas. You come to the Vedas again divide itself into Paravidya and Aparavidya. So, if you read the Vedas as Paravidya and Aparavidya, what is the Aparavidya of the Veda? That Aparavidya of the Veda, from another angle, we call it as Veda Purva. The Aparavidya of the Veda, we call it as Veda Purva. And what is Veda Purva? Karma Upasana. Karma and Upasana. So, the study of Karma Upasana becomes Karma Bhakti. Upasana means, Upasana is a much better word than the Bhakti, because it clarifies certain things that we want to convey as what Bhakti is. So, Karma and Upasana is Aparavidya. Paravidya is the Upanishad. Upanishad is also belongs to Aparavidya because we have not yet become, therefore Paravidya. So para, apara, the meanings keeps on changing. So you need to know the context of the person, and then you will know what is Paravidya, Aparavidya. Teaching will be taught accordingly. You follow the sequence how the teaching happens. So Paravidya, Aparavidya has two meanings. So at one level, Aparavidya means worldly knowledges. Paravidya means knowledge of the Vedas. That's very clear. How do we say that? In the introduction, we have studied all that already. Even if you study the materialistic sciences in a genuine, sincere way, by default you will come to Vedas only. You remember the introduction that we gave? By default you will come here only. Therefore, that is Aparavidya and this is Paravidya. And now you come to Paravidya, which is the Vedas. The Vedas divide itself into two. How does it divide itself? Aparaveda and Paraveda. That Aparaveda is called Veda. Because we have a sentimental value to the Veda, we will not want to say Aparaveda. Aparamna, inferior. So anything related to the Veda, because of our emotional infatuation, we will not want to use the word Aparaveda, we will want to call it Veda Purva. Upanishad uses Veda Purva. It is Apara, it is Apara Veda. And then comes the Upanishad. Is the Upanishad's Paravidya? No. Upanishad also becomes Aparavidya because Upanishad is only a word. The word, the logic, the reason, the intellectual comprehension. That belongs to the category of Apara. Then what is Para? What is Para? Aham Brahmasmi becomes Para. So, from materialistic sciences to Aham Brahmasmi, the entire spectrum of knowledge is divided into two, Paravidya and Aparavidya. These two should be known. These two should be known. These two should be known means what? These two should be known. Means what? Known, practiced, transcended. These words, these should be known. Means you should know it, practice it, transcend it. Know it, practice it, transcend it. Just knowing is of no use. In YouTube, I saw how to make sambar. There is sambar. There is only water in the front, but then there is sambar in the. No, that kind of knowing is not knowing. Knowing means practicing. Therefore, now we will not discuss the para apara of worldly sciences and Vedic sciences. So we will discard the materialistic sciences because that's not our subject. Therefore, the para apara we will discuss only in the Vedic context. So what is Apara? Vedapurva. And what is Vedapurva? We have studied that any number of times. Panchamaha Yajna. Five noble acts. Pancha means five. Yajna means great acts. Maha, great. No, the five great noble acts that everybody must do every day. Panchamaha Yajna. Deva, Rishi, Vidru, Manushya, Bhuta. Five. Deva, Rishi, Vidru, Manushya, Bhuta. These five put together in the language of Bhagavad Gita, we call it as the right action with right attitude. Again, Vedapurva is talking about the Panchamaha Yajna. Deva, Rishi, Vidru, Manushya, Bhuta. The right action with the right attitude, which in the language of Bhagavad Gita we will call it as the Karma Bhakti. In the language of Atma Bodha we will call it as Chitta Shuddhi. What we call as Chitta Shuddhi in the language of Atma Bodha is what we call as Karma Bhakti in the language of Bhagavad Gita is what we call as Aparavidya in the language of Upanishad. Means we're going to say the same thing again and again, no? This I would have stayed back in Singapore since. Or we gave here the same thing, I could have heard it. Paravidya and Aparavidya. So what is Aparavidya now? Any practices that helps you to develop Chitta Shuddhi, inner purification. Because people don't like the word purification, we have to use the word management. Because people don't like the word purification nowadays. Oh, I am pure. What do you mean purification? Am I dirty or not? The answer is yes. And we will not agitate people so much in the beginning. Therefore, we try to pretend to be good in the beginning. So you know that. We pretended to be good in the beginning only to show our true colors. So, what we call as self-management is nothing but the inner purification. And what is that inner purification? The indicators of inner purification: emotional stability and intellectual clarity. Shaunaka is that Mahashala. That intellectual clarity and emotional stability is Aparavidya. With that Aparavidya, you come to Paravidya. The intellectual clarity. You can have lot of intellectual clarity and not be stable at all emotionally. Anything can upset you. You can be a very intelligent person and be upset all the time. Or you can be stable but not understand. And the 2 plus 2 now you will still think, isn't it? 2 in the mind, 2 in the mind, 2 in the fingers. Which fingers, sir? Any 2 fingers you keep. So, Paravidya aim is to make you qualified to come to Aparavidya aim is to qualify you to come to Paravidya. Therefore, these 2 should be known. Don't you know that? Haven't you heard that? Shaunaka, these 2 should be known. What is that? Para chaiva, para cha. Para cha eva, apara cha eva. Para cha eva, apara cha eva. Therefore, eva is a common. Therefore, we say para and apara, para, apara, para, apara. Even that para, apara becomes too much to say. We say para, apara. Para, apara, para, apara. Para, apara means para plus apara. At the Vedic level, what is Aparavidya? That which purifies you is Aparavidya. Understand? he is not calling it as wrong knowledge. He is calling it as lower knowledge. There is a difference between wrong knowledge and lower knowledge. Wrong knowledge means you are taught the false. Lower knowledge means it's a stepping stone to something else. Lower not in the sense of inferior. Lower in the sense of a stepping stone. Okay. Para and apara, lower and higher, not in the sense of inferior and superior. Most of the people interpret it as lower in the sense of inferior, higher in the sense of how can there can be the inferior Veda and superior Veda. Veda is Veda. How can one portion of the book be false and another portion of the book be true? First chapter of the book is wrong. Second chapter of the book is right. Will that book be an authoritative book? For the book to be authoritative, everything in the book has to be right. It means everything that is said in the Vedas is right. But then, depending on the adhikari, para, apara distinctions keep changing. Again, depending on the adhikari, the para, apara distinctions keeps changing. Para, chaiva, raja. Yat, Brahmavido vadanti. Brahmavid have said. Brahmavida means Brahmavid. Brahmavid means one who is Brahman. One who is Brahman is Brahman. Therefore, Brahman says this. What Brahman says now? Para. To come to me, you need stepping stones. Two types of knowledge. To come to me, you need two knowledges. To come to me is to get into yourself. Because you and me are not different. Come to me, you don't come to me. Come to me means getting into yourself. Why? Because you and me are different. We appear to be different because of the Nama Rupa. In essence, you and me are the same. Again, in the Nama Rupa, there is a difference. In essence, it is the same. In a very simple way, you can have two understandings. What are the two understandings? You can say, I am the bulb enlivened by electricity. You can say that. Or you can say, I am the electricity enlivening all the bulbs, including this. It means you have taken a step that is called R. Therefore, you need to know both the knowledges you need to know. That's what the mantra itself is very clearly saying. Two knowledges are to be known. Are to be known. It means it's a command that you should know. Are to be known indeed. It means it's a command that you need to know both para and apara. Why? Because without the lower step, you cannot come to the step. Therefore, to say, oh sir, we believe only in the Upanishads, we don't believe in karma. All these are inferior people. We don't believe in that. We do only Paravidya, only we will do. Okay. What is the proof to know that you have come to the Paravidya? Yesterday we saw an indicator. What is the indicator? No Vijgupsa, no Dvesha, no Moha. Okay. In English language, how will you call this as? Emotional maturity and intellectual clarity. So the Aparavidya gives you the intellectual clarity and emotional maturity. Are you able to connect now? It gives you the emotional maturity and the intellectual clarity to come to the Aparavidya. And then he goes on to explain what is Aparavidya, Paravidya, etc. Because everything has to be known, logically where will you start? Will you start in the highest rung of the ladder and come down, or you will start from the lowest rung. Therefore, he starts discussing Apara Vidya first. Tatra Apara. And the tea break is over, we will read. They ask these students. That we will read after the tea break. But the sequence you must follow. What is the sequence? Because this is how it has to be done. Paravidya, the Apara Vidya is a stepping stone to Paravidya. Therefore, logically, what you should read first? You can't read Paravidya and then come to Apara Vidya. Remember the law we spoke yesterday? The end cannot be the beginning. The end cannot be the beginning. Therefore, Tatra Para Rigvedo is going to start. Apara Vidya. He gives out the list of the Apara Vidya, talks about the benefit of it, having gotten the benefit, transcend. We are going to discuss. First, he will talk about Apara Vidya, the benefit of Apara Vidya, having gotten the benefit, say thank you and transcend. This will take a break. We will read again at 11:15. 11:15, 11:15.